Like the time Peter went to that respectable massage parlor, there's nothing worse than an unhappy ending. We are of course talking about not getting complimentary sweeties at the end, you perverts. A finale that falls flat is a particularly egregious sin in video games. Sure, a film that ends poorly can leave you feeling robbed of a couple of hours of your life, but that disappointment is magnified significantly when you consider the 10, 20, sometimes hundreds of hours you've invested in an otherwise enjoyable game. You've spent several weeks powering through epic space operas, post-apocalyptic wastelands, and dangerous battlefields, expecting a satisfying conclusion for your efforts, only to be slapped in the face with a half-assed cutscene that barely acknowledges your actions, doesn't explain anything, or worst of all, is a cliffhanger. These final scene duds can result in massive uproar from fans and a sour taste left in your mouth during the end credits. Just a warning before we start naming and shaming, in case you hadn't realised from the subject matter, this video about game endings will contain spoilers. Is everyone okay with that? Fantastic! I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are the 10 most controversial video game endings. Number 10. Far Cry 5. Firefights in beautiful locations, weird drug visions, and a charismatic yet deranged antagonist. So far, so Cry. But series tropes aside, the Seed family were certainly compelling bad guys, a brood of doomsday cultists with a penchant for kidnapping that had put Bowser to shame, all led by chief Kool-Aid drinker Joseph Seed. The final confrontation can end one of two ways: walk away, somewhat of a cop-out but featuring an interesting twist, or fight Joseph, which ends with his wacky end-of-the-world prophecy coming true, via a great big nuke. The disappointment here lies entirely on your patience for surprise endings. On one hand, it was subtly foreshadowed, with radio broadcasts hinting at imminent nuclear warfare, and there's a nice poetry in the crazy cultist actually being right for once in a visually spectacular way, but on the other hand, it was a bit far-fetched, and who's going to believe the ramblings of a madman anyway? What's next? The Earth isn't actually flat? Come off it. By walking to the edge. Ending in a nuclear bunker with Joseph being your rescuer and newest family member, oh that's nice, was a bold move, but lacked a sense of satisfaction and made the whole saga seem a bit pointless. At least the sequel/spin-off New Dawn gave the player some control back, with a powerful end to Father Joseph's illustrious fortune-telling career. Number 9. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. Shocking revelations: if you give the developer no time to produce a game, some things are likely to go wrong. Who'd have thought? Obsidian Entertainment had just over a year to create a sequel to one of the most beloved RPGs of all time, Knights of the Old Republic. And frankly, what they achieved was nothing short of a miracle, reaching similar heights as the first. But the tight deadline was all too apparent in the now infamous amount of cut content in KOTOR 2, especially noticeable in the lackluster finale. We ended up with an extended conversation that served as a great big exposition dump, one that still left many plot points unresolved. What happened with the HK factory? What about Goto's plans to rebuild the Republic? And after chasing Revan, a key character from the first game, halfway across the galaxy, you never actually meet the guy or girl. Obsidian originally planned a much bigger role for Revan in KOTOR 3, as well as a terrifying ancient Sith threat lurking in the darkest corner of the galaxy, but the sequel never came to be. Thankfully, a fan-made restored content mod brought back some of the game's lost conclusions, making it a must-have when revisiting this classic. Number 8. Crysis. Can it run Crysis has been a meme in PC gaming for so long it's weird to think this resource-heavy powerhouse came out in 2007. So the good news is your PC probably can run it now, but really you should be less worried about whether Crysis will start and more concerned with whether Crysis actually has an ending. The answer to which is no, not a complete one. Or yes, but a very abrupt ending with a cliffhanger that isn't even followed up on in the sequel. Cliffhangers are rarely handled well, especially in game series with years between releases. In this case, your character Nomad has just taken out a formidable alien cephalopod warship and heads back to the island where most of the game takes place, stating,
"No, we know how to beat them now. We need to keep fighting."
So you're pumped and ready for an epic final fight, and then, roll credits. Oh well, the sequel will pick up where this left off, right? No. It starts 3 years later and barely acknowledges the first game's ending at all. Brilliant. Hey Google, can my PC unrun Crysis? Number 7. Ghosts and Goblins. We all know 8-bit gaming was far more difficult than today's crop. That's just science. These modern baby games for big babies all hold our pathetic baby hands to make sure we're having a nice time, but back in 1985, games didn't care about your precious feelings. If you wanted to see the end screen, you had to earn it. The heightened challenge made the endings feel incredibly rewarding without needing spectacular cutscenes or big story reveals. But Ghosts and Goblins not only pushed the limits of difficulty, but also made a fool of anyone who somehow reached the end. You can only take 2 hits before losing a life, and each life has a time limit, making it a grueling slog to the final boss. And when you beat him, you haven't even finished. Because you're sent right back to the start with an underpowered weapon and have to do it all again. Oh, can I have my baby game back, please? Once you complete it for a second time, your only reward is this poorly worded text. Congratulations, this story is happy end. Well, that's a relief. And no, I don't care how much strength is welling in my body, I will not return to the starting point again. Good day! Number 6. Halo 2. Yes, even the illustrious Halo 2 wasn't free from controversy when it released. The revolutionary multiplayer and superb campaign set such a high standard that it made the surprisingly abrupt ending stand out like a sore thumb. You all know what we're talking about.
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
Unlike Crysis, however, we actually did get to finish said fight in 2007's Halo 3, and what a finish it was, satisfying most disgruntled fans, even if it also ended on a slight cliffhanger itself. Fun fact, Halo 2's ending was actually changed heavily in early concept stages, which explains the sudden ending. The story was much more ambitious initially, basically encompassing most of what happened in Halo 3. Master Chief returns to Earth, finds the Ark, teams with the Arbiter, beats up the Prophet of Truth, drinks all round. But one cut sequence that turned the chase for the Forerunner ship into an epic warthog run did end up in the game's files and was recently restored by modder Black Diamond. We're just glad someone finished the fight. Number 5. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. I know we've already warned you, but seriously, spoiler warning. Ready? It was all a lie. You were never Big Boss in the first place, just a doppelganger, a regular schmuck who underwent surgery to look like the Big Boss man, mind-controlled and sent off to distract everyone from the actual Snake. Mother Base, your wondrous sovereign land free of outside government oppression, was built on a foundation of lies! The avatar you create at the beginning ends up being the one behind all of your actions, and subsequently the catalyst for the prior game's events too. Kojima wanted this to be a nod to the fans, placing them in one of the most vital roles in the already bonkers timeline, but this only created more questions than answers, like where was the real Big Boss, and why did he turn to the dark side? And also, how did 1980s doctors manage to transplant Snake's actual memories? Do not say nanomachines, don't even bring them up! The clearly rushed final act due to Kojima's messy breakup with Konami and an axed final mission that was vital for wrapping up the story with Eli and the Metal Gear all added to a disappointing end to a fun but confusing final chapter. And no Metal Gear survive, please. Number 4. Fable II. Presenting the master of overpromising and underdelivering, Peter Molyneux. The infamous game designer has a back catalogue brimming with classics, but there's no denying many of them suffered from his unchecked ambition. Fable II was one of his greatest hits, part of a series of fantasy RPGs that centered around player freedom and choice. Whether you'd spend time helping villagers or sacrificing them at an altar, most of the game saw you chasing down the dastardly Lord Lucian, responsible for killing your sister, your spouse, your kids, and even your dog. Kicking chickens is one thing, but seriously, what the hell, Lucian? Yet once you catch up to him, it's far from a satisfying moment of revenge. Lucian monologues for a while until you either end him with a single attack, or worse still, if you wait too long, your companion Reaver shoots him for you, robbing you of the honor. Follow that with a muted pick one of 3 cards finale, and it's hard not to feel deflated after such a grand adventure. The backlash for the ending later influenced the DLC, allowing you to resurrect your dog no matter the choice, which at least provides some consolation for a very good boy. Number 3. Fallout 3. Welcome to another thrilling episode of Radiation Chamber, the hit show where one lucky survivor gets to, say it with us, die needlessly. Hooray! Now let's get those Geiger counters ticking and meet our lucky contestants. Our lucky contestants. First up, we have Sharon the Ghoul, a trained bodyguard with a unique physiology making him immune to all radiation, but, well, unfortunately, he's saved your sorry ass enough. Shame. Next up, Forks, the super mutant with a science degree who is also amazingly immune to radiation. Sadly, he's also a firm believer in destiny and doesn't want to rob you of yours. What about Sergeant RL3, a Mr. Gutsy model who loves the smell of burning plasma, hates commies, and is a robot completely unaffected by radiation? Sorry, but no, he wants you to finish your own fight, soldier. Well, that leaves one candidate. You, the Lone Wanderer, a squishy human extremely vulnerable to radiation. Good luck, and Godspeed. Don't worry though, for your efforts you'll win a series of faithful yet middling conclusion slides, vaguely covering the broad strokes of your life so far. Oh, and a holiday to New Vegas. Assuming you've survived the chamber, of course, which if you don't have the Broken Steel DLC, you definitely won't. Number 2. Curiosity. What's inside the cube? It's a Peter Molyneux double whammy! While Fable II was at least a good game, this infamous mobile title was barely a game at all, more of a social experiment by a man drunk on power and wild promises. Molyneux's most recent studio, 22 Cans, launched Curiosity: What's Inside the Cube in 2012, a collaborative game involving thousands of players tapping away at one solitary cube, all trying to break through the layers and discover, well, what's inside the cube. In trademark Molyneux fashion, he promised the winner would find something life-changingly amazing by any definition. But after 6 months, what was actually inside the cube? A tiny Peter Molyneux making yet more promises, of course. Oh dear. The life-changing prize was a role as a digital god in 22 Can's strategy game Goddess and a share of the profits. But for winner, 18-year-old Brian Henderson, it was hardly earth-shattering. He met with Molyneux and the dev team and was largely ignored for most of the visit and had virtually no contact with the company for almost 2 years afterwards. Goddess suffered from development woes and Henderson, to our knowledge, never officially got paid for his cube tapping troubles. At least GameBundle.com and Bulletproof Bit released a bundle raising funds for this forgotten god, delivering where Molyneux once again failed miserably. Number 1. Mass Effect 3. Of course it had to be Mass Effect 3, the least surprising plot twist since the media backlash against the whole bumping uglies with aliens thing. Come on, you prudes. Leading Commander Shepard in his or her fight to save the galaxy, resolving centuries-old rivalries between races and making time to tear up the dance floor made Mass Effect one of the greatest space adventures in gaming. The series made a huge deal about player choice too, as your decision carried across to the sequels. But this only amplified the shockingly disappointing finale, where your grand galaxy-wide journey spanning 3 games amounted to pick your favourite colour, with 3 choices that remained the same regardless of your actions taken throughout the series. It undermined 3 games worth of build-up and left fans furious. There were angry petitions, complaints to the Federal Trade Commission, and one group even sent BioWare a selection of cupcakes in 3 different colours that all tasted exactly the same. The perfect display of passive-aggressive protest. In the face of overwhelming dissent, a free update later bulked out the ending scenes, providing some closure on your choices in the major storylines, but the ending still tarnishes this otherwise excellent trilogy to this day. And we can't look at Neapolitan ice cream the same way. Thanks, BioWare.